Welcome into the Double Down podcast. It is your boys, Dustin and Dylan Dupree, here with the fantasy playoffs full in swing and chaos about Kyle Pitts dropping major points this past week. Let's get into it and let's talk all about the fantasy implications of these last couple of weeks and the prospects coming into 2026 if you're one of those teams that unfortunately has been eliminated. Let's double down. Welcome in. It is your boys Dustin and Dylan Dupree, as I said, and let's dive right into it with just kind of the playoffs and how things have kind of shaken up. And in general, for those of you guys that are in the chat, if you have any questions in terms of starts and kind of where you're at in the playoffs, please feel free to let us know. Both of us have had our hearts broken in some of our biggest leagues this year in the first round of playoffs. So we're right there with you. we know how it's going, and we know how tough it can be sometimes in the fantasy playoffs and trying to get to that championship, because as much skill as it takes to get to the playoffs, because I feel like that's really what it takes in terms of getting to the fantasy playoffs, is a lot of skill. Sometimes it's luck in terms of actually getting to the championship and even winning it.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely does take skill and a little luck along the way, but once you get there, there's a lot of luck involved, and certain players that you don't expect, they all the time they go off and
oh yeah, especially in the playoffs.
Michael Wilson right now is probably winning people leagues, and who would have guessed that in the beginning of the season? So
oh yeah, not a soul. Especially like it took Brissett almost putting Kyler out of a job at the moment for that to happen. So it's like it's crazy.
Again, like I've said in many videos before, you never can tell what's truly going to happen. You can always speculate. You can always give a good guesstimate, but you can never truly know.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's in God's hands for real.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of variables too that you can prepare yourself for sure as best you can. And that's why we have these shows, and that's why we do the research we do as a dynasty community, as a fantasy community, to try to get the best edge. And sometimes if you're in that situation now where you're either in the semis, in the finals, depending on your league format, props to you for getting there. We're gonna
no easy feats.
Yeah, like Dill said earlier, we're gonna filter through some questions if you guys have any. We're also going to be able to hopefully answer any questions you might have about Dynasty moving forward, since it is that time of year where we're definitely getting into the season of at least, watching the rest of the college games.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to be definitely diving into some prospects today. So like I said, if you didn't make it, or even if you did make it and you're still in the playoffs, it's a great time to keep your eyes on some of the guys that are coming out next year, because a lot of people are a little mixed on their feelings of this class. But the two of us think it's a little deeper than some people are expecting. And I feel like there's definitely some gems that you can find always, like whether it's an Amon-Ra that kind of slipped through the cracks back in the day, or a Bucky Irving type of guy. Like there's a lot of guys that if you keep your eye out and pay attention to the prospects coming in, you can find some gems a lot of the time. And that's what we're here to help you guys do. So
yeah, there's definitely a lot of people to at least keep an eye on, in my opinion, in this upcoming draft. A lot of the community seems to be down on this class as a whole, but I actually do believe this can and could end up being a pretty deep class, specifically at receiver. And there's definitely some running backs that are worthwhile as well, to not just Jeremiah Love, but the rest of them are interesting enough and have put enough body of work together, either through their collegiate career or this past season, to where they should be considered. Maybe not all of them first rounders, of course, but they should be considered in your rookie drafts in the second round, maybe late first.
Of course, landing spots are definitely going to play a big role into this. So definitely,
Correct.
it is in a sense way too early right now because we have no idea what's going to eventually play out. But the two of us definitely have got a good pair of eyes on ourselves and have paid a lot of attention to the college season throughout this year, and in general to this class and to next year's class, because there's a lot of prospects in the next 2 years that the two of us have kind of kept our eyes on and fallen in love with slowly. I mean, last year we definitely liked a lot of guys, but I feel like the two of us were definitely like we didn't feel like we were going to be in the Genty sweepstakes, so we didn't necessarily take a step back because we're always plugged in. But we definitely, and we still found some gems for sure, but between the two of us. But definitely we didn't feel like we had to go all in last year for the guys that we wanted, whereas this year and next season for our rookie drafts, the two of us are definitely preparing because there's guys that we want and we want to get our hands on, and I feel like that's a big reason why we're doing this stream in particular, and a big part of what we're going to be doing in the off season too is just preparing and trying to figure out what guys we're actually trying to target and trying to get in these rookie drafts. Because between the two of us, we went all in this big league that we have where it's a $200 kind of buy-in. It's a 12-team half-point PPR with 5-point quarterback touchdown scoring. So it's a very interesting league. But between the two of us, like we co-managed the team in that, and we went all in on this running back that's coming out in this next year, which we'll probably talk about him in a little bit. But man, there's a lot of good prospects coming out in the next couple of years. I'll tell you that, guys, that much.
Yeah, it's definitely something to get excited about. We also, the one thing to remember as a community is in Dynasty, there's always going to be some hype around this time of year always going forward until the draft and even through and past the draft. Mm-hmm. Because that's where you're really, people get excited about landing spots. People get excited about players because of the combine.
Yeah, and sometimes landing spots and situations can get overblown. Like a lot of people like Travis Hunter, and I'm not saying Travis Hunter's a bad player. He's a great player. But the two of us felt like he's going to be playing like almost half defense, half offense, to where like that might take a hit in his fantasy production on a week-to-week basis, and it makes him a guy that's tougher to rely on.
Yeah, and he ended up getting hurt, and we had some concerns about that in terms of
playing. And he did look good right before he got hurt in terms of offensive production.
I don't think there's any doubt still here from us. Maybe doubt of that he could do both sides consistently.
Yeah, he did get hurt. So, I mean, there is that. But
correct.
In general, that's the kind of thing that we're kind of sifting through in terms of, obviously he won a Heisman and he's a great player, but is he going to be able to give you the fantasy production to where he's actually warranting that top 5 rookie pick that you potentially spent on him? You know what I mean?
Exactly. I do see, before we continue too far, I do see a question in the chat from Avery Chapman. Appreciate your question, Avery. The question is, start McLaurin, or is that Tyrone Tracy, I would assume?
I would believe that he would be the only Tracy, I think, that's fantasy relevant.
McLaurin or Tyrone Tracy at flex, full PPR. Let me quickly look at their matchups.
That's what I'm going to check right now as well.
I'm pretty sure
the Giants play Minnesota. I don't know what their running back rank is. I got to look.
If I'm not mistaken, they're decent against running backs.
They've been a good defense all year. I don't know about
top tier, but definitely decent. Terry McLaurin is against the Eagles.
So on our platform and our dynasty at the moment, Tyrone Tracy is against Minnesota, who's the 14th ranked running back defense. And who is the McLaurin? Let's check McLaurin real quick. I think he has a tougher match. He plays Philadelphia this week, which high-key scared me because I feel like
Philly is 9th against receivers in fantasy in our format. That is a tough matchup. The fact that they have Mariota starting, the fact that,
if I'm not mistaken, too, Quignon's rookie year in particular, he locked up Terry, if I'm not mistaken. But at that point, obviously, there was no Debo to worry about as well. Mariota.
DeJean is also out there for the Eagles. And, it's a tough matchup because you almost get the sense that Washington will probably be down in that game, even though Philly's been a little interesting
Yeah.
this year. It's a Saturday game as well. That's something
And
to keep in
Terry
mind.
has done well the last 2 weeks since kind of giving that rest from coming back from that injury again. Getting nicked up. Personally, I'm relying on Terry to try and get the first pick in our dynasty. So I'm hoping he has a good week. But I definitely think the right move could be Tracy.
So the one scary thing I'll say about Tracy that I've been thinking about right now is the fact that you kind of don't know what week you're going to have Tracy be the guy or Singletary be the guy.
Or even Dart running it in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is so. This is a very tough. Based on game script, if you want to go based on game script of the likely outcomes of the game, Giants probably lose to Minnesota, but that could be a competitive game depending on which McCarthy we get. If we get the McCarthy against Dallas, who wasn't that bad, he had some okay plays, and just overall, they won the game, and their defense is a force, Minnesota's. So I would probably lean Terry just based on game script. They're going to need to throw the ball. They have a couple of running backs banged up in Washington, so they might need to lean on Terry. It was no Zach Ertz either. The defense is definitely a concern because of the secondary, but I don't think Terry comes away with a dud.
No. I will say in terms of upside, Terry's going to be able to give you the better performance or the highest ceiling between those two guys. It is a tougher matchup, and I am a little scared of DeJean and Quignon being able to lock the two of them up and just shut down that offense because they've been kind of struggling throughout the year. But I will say I don't know what the situation is for Chris Rodriguez Jr., but if he's out again, Minnesota, who are they playing? They are playing Minnesota, right?
The Giants?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's interesting. I don't know, man. That's tough. Probably Terry. The floor play would be, the floor play would be Tracy. It's a matter of what you need also, and as a flex, you're trying to get the most points you can get from your flex. So Terry's probably the right play. You need a couple big plays from him if you're gonna go Terry in that regard. Tyrone is, like I said, that dude's gonna be a safe play. It's just a matter of if you need the safe play or the blow up play.
Correct. But yeah, lean Terry. Tracy's not a bad play if you trust him and if you trust that that's going to be a competitive game. But again, got to be you got to trust that it's going to be a competitive game. Giants have done that in a lot of their games this year because of Dart. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I lean Terry because they're going to need to throw the ball to be effective. To try to probably come back in that game. So
yeah, and we were talking a little bit ago, and so with the prospects and in terms of next year, a lot of what we're thinking about in terms of going into next season, and for those of people that are potentially out of the playoffs, what's the landscape of the league going to look like next year? Because the Giants right now, they're one of the worst teams record-wise and everything, but once they get Neighbors back, a healthy Cam Scatterby, potentially whoever they pick in the draft, because it could be
right now they're projecting to have the quite literally the number one pick, which
they could trade back and a whole bunch more assets,
which I'm sure most if you guys have paid any attention or if you dug any deep at all yet in terms of mock drafts for 26, you'll have seen that there's just a common theme of the Giants getting the number one pick and trading it to the Jets in almost every draft you could see, because the Jets need the quarterback.
Yeah, they desperately
Giants don't need the quarterback. The Giants just found their quarterback in Dart. So the Giants, the idea for them would be to trade back to the fifth pick plus probably some more seconds or future first as well depending on how badly the Jets want that first pick. So what they could do is trade back, end up building more pieces around Dart, more pieces for that defense, because that front seven is good.
Yeah, it's more the
they might need another
secondary that
linebacker or two to go along with Okereke or Okereke, however you want to pronounce it.
Bobby Okereke.
I love Okereke.
Yeah.
And but to go along with him, they might need another linebacker and a couple more secondary pieces. Plus improve the O-line for sure. They have a couple guys like Andrew Thomas and whatnot, and they can build around that for sure and continue to expand the line potentially by trading back and getting more picks. And they can do a lot of good things in this draft if they're smart, which I would assume they will be after this last draft. They finally made solid picks.
Yeah.
They should improve further into this next season. But yeah, you're right. The landscape will change of the league. You got Mahomes injured. That's big fantasy implications. Huge. Specifically for Dynasty, because now
anybody that was relying on Chiefs players for She Rice in particular, like I don't know if you can next year.
Yeah, the rest, you might be able to, but instead of a wide receiver 1 with Mahomes, he might be downgraded to more of a wide receiver 2/flex. And
a lot more inconsistency potentially,
yes. The other thing though to think about is maybe that inconsistency is balanced out by the potential of Travis Kelce retiring. Because Mahomes is out for the season, you could see Kelce just maybe hang it up, even though he probably wouldn't want to end it like that. I'm not sure he wants to go through a full season without his guy and wait for him to get back. That's a huge decision that's going to be looming, I think, at this point, especially the fact that they're not in the playoff contention.
Yeah, he's busy doing stuff with Taylor anyway.
Sure, he might want to just start his life outside of football.
Enjoy it, man. Yeah, you had a hell of a career. You're one of the greatest tight ends of all time.
Yeah, maybe this is the sign of, hey, hang it up, because now your guy's got to be down for a year, going to miss a whole season most likely, and it's just looking like the Chiefs are going to hit a little bit of a mini reset button while Mahomes is out. Potentially draft some pieces. It would be smart for them to either draft the best available at the positional need, or draft some really athletically talented guys that maybe are 1-year development, and then the second year you could see this guy could really blossom, because guess what? Mahomes is going to be out anyways. So Mahomes being out,
you can hear in the background, that's the Chiefs dynasty collapsing.
Yeah. Oh my Lord.
It's a train wreck right collapse. Now. It's Crashy Rice levels of train wreck.
Yeah, you could say that for sure.
But yeah, so definitely a lot of different implications already, and just with injuries that have happened throughout the year. I can tell you personally, in my team that's in the championship and our main dynasty, I've lost 7 people technically to injury throughout the year. Granted, one of them was a kicker, but still, it's like, dude, I feel like I'm piecing it together at this point, and that sometimes you just need the depth to get you over the hump. So, crossing my fingers that I'm able to get the job done this year and go back to back, but it's no easy task.
Never is. The fantasy makes sure of that. So, but yeah, no, There's a lot to unpack though for going into next season, and obviously this season isn't over still. We still got the last couple weeks and then into the playoffs. But as far as a dynasty perspective,
yeah, I'm sure a lot of leagues right now you're probably in your semis, or if you're sort of like us and don't do week 18 and our 2 main leagues, we also do 2-week playoffs.
Yep.
Because they kind of, in our opinion, it kind of shows who the actual better team is over 2 weeks. Because sometimes you get luckier. You have a bad competition or bad matchups.
Weeks. Yeah. So anything could happen. We like the 2-week playoffs. Plus, we only have a 10-team. It's only a 10-team dynasty rather than what most people I think have is likely a 12 team.
Yeah, we do have a couple I have a couple dynasties where it's 1 week playoffs, including that 12 team that we're in. So that one we're already out, but like we said, we have the number 1 and number 3 picks now because we traded Amon Ra. Shout out to my brother, great trade.
Yeah. I mean, the receivers we had, it just made sense. That's another thing we could get into, or any questions potentially, any trades you might have, trade thoughts you might have. Obviously, a lot of a lot of dynasty leagues at this point possibly could have their obviously
trade deadlines
have their
over.
trade deadlines already.
Yeah, it's obviously playoffs and championship time. We leave it open in our league, and me as the commissioner, just to explain it a little bit.
Yep.
It's kind of more like, dude, this is your dynasty team. Like, if you're gonna make a trade in the playoffs, like that's something that is gonna, that affects you the rest of next year and throughout the.
I'll say this too about trading in the playoffs. Obviously, we don't allow a collusion trade.
No.
If anything, the trade has to be, making sense. Plus, it's a dynasty, so why would you want to have?
I don't think we've had
a dynasty, anyways.
We haven't really had many trades that have actually happened in the playoffs too, because most people just at this point are either done or don't want to help a team type of thing, or nobody's really trying to trade at this point. But we're all like intrigued and still like, because we're pretty active league for the most part. like that thing.
Yeah. But the other thing too about trading at this point, it also keeps the league somewhat active while the teams that have not made the playoffs can still make moves.
Yeah.
Obviously they have potential picks that they may want to move, potential players that they're already looking to acquire or toss to the side, whatever the case may be, for their own dynasty teams. So we keep that trade deadline open all year. We're not opposed to making trades any time of year. So your league may be different, but
definitely, I know there's a lot of dynasties that definitely don't.
Yeah, they have trade deadlines and whatnot, but regardless, if any trades come to your mind or anything that you're thinking about maybe offering in the off season, let us know in the comments.
Yeah,
definitely.
One of the other things we're talking about here today is kind of the reality of having to rebuild or feeling like this team might not be able to get me over the hump, especially in Dynasty, because obviously in redraft, you're a little more limited in terms of what you can do with trades. And a lot of times I feel like people are less willing to trade in redraft, which makes sense. There's less picks and things involved that you can actually give up as value.
Yeah, usually the hesitant thing for most people, I would assume, is just pressing that button essentially and committing to a rebuild, whether it's a hard rebuild,
sometimes it's necessary
rebuild. Yeah, I mean a quick turnaround type of rebuild. You got to make moves sometimes and see the light, see the writing on the wall, essentially.
Perpetual writing on the wall,
before it happens. You don't want to be stuck
holding the bag, as they say.
Correct, because all of a sudden, you travel X amount of miles with said bag, and you look at the end of the trip, and there's much less bag than there was before.
No, all of a sudden the bag has a hole in it and everything fell out.
No, exactly. Like, that's what I'm talking about. There's much less. There's much less in there from when you first initially had the said asset or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So
I just traded Jonathan Taylor before this season started. Sure, it made me look like a fool, but it was it was a pick swap to where I was trading away 28 and 29 picks because I had no 26 or 27 picks.
And we like those two classes.
Yes.
In particular.
And you could say, trading away Jonathan Taylor and 2 firsts, that's absurd. Justin Fields was also going away in the deal. So it was Taylor 29, 28, and Justin Fields for Christian McCaffrey, which still
was Herbert involved in that?
Yes, Christian McCaffrey, Justin Herbert. So I upgraded at quarterback from Fields to Herbert
as a backup. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, exactly, as my backup, which I needed this year because Joe Burrow went out for most of the season. And then I ended up also getting, a 26 and 27 first. So I got a little older with the running back. The change wasn't necessarily different based on production because McCaffrey and Taylor are 1 and 2. the thing that it did for me is it, got me those picks in the next 2 years while having no dip in production.
Yeah.
I get older, but those picks sooner will counteract that age essentially.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes you got to make those moves. If I didn't get McCaffrey, I wouldn't have included those picks back. I would have just probably asked for multiple picks and maybe a young player, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, like, you got to sometimes trade the guy while they're at a very high value. And I could even mid season, I probably would have been able to get even more because of how he's producing. But McCaffrey's also producing at an exact same level, essentially. And
they're literally like what, the 1 and 2
1
still,
and 2,
so
So it really,
I mean, at this point, Taylor's not going to give you the same production necessarily because he's got the interesting situation.
The quarterback situation now with no Daniel Jones does make it a lot different, and it's just it's a different kind of animal to tackle.
Yeah,
at this point in the season.
Yeah, and I think honestly, in terms of trades, and just in terms of rebuilds and hard rebuilds, and just what I was talking about before, just feeling like this team is really good, and I feel like I might have a championship window right now, but it also, there's times where it's not gonna get you over the hump. If like, I don't know how else to really put it. The best way I can explain it is what I had to do back in 2021, 2022. Going through basically when Tyreek was transitioning from a Chief to a Dolphin and AJ Brown was going from a Titan to an Eagle. At the time, I had AJ Brown, who was a Titan and was always hurt. he was great there. Don't get me wrong. I loved AJ Brown and still do. It hurt me so bad to trade him. But at the time, I had AJ Brown and Tyreek Hill. I had been to a championship and lost in our second year in our dynasty by 1.8 points in the championship. It was heartbreaking. Still to this day, it is one of the most heartbreaking fantasy losses I've ever had. But I knew after losing the next season in the first round because of some bad luck and some stuff that happened situationally, where Tyreek and AJ Brown just couldn't get me over the hump with, I think I still had DK Metcalf at the time too. It just felt like the writing was on the wall that Tyreek was kind of sort of maybe going to leave. Like, it wasn't a sure thing at that point, but like in my head as a dynasty manager who had that Tyreek and Mahomes stack, it was like, Tyreek is that dude. He's going to go chase the bag. And so I traded him right before he went to the Dolphins. And I also traded AJ Brown because I was just like, you know what? He might leave the Tennessee Titans, and I don't know if he's going to go to a better situation. Not necessarily that the Titans situation was bad, but I actually packaged him in a deal where
there's a lot of trade rumors around that time surrounding him, but no one knew where he's going to go.
Yeah, plus it was weird because the Titans were interesting, and then of course they traded him for that pick that got them Treylon Burks. So it was a mess for the Titans in that sense, and honestly, it was a better situation. And looking back, and it's funny because after I made those trades, because I got 2 firsts essentially for trading Tyreek and for each, I got 2 firsts for Tyreek, and then I got 2 firsts for trading AJ Brown and Devonta Smith before they were on the same team together. So it was like almost them going on the same team together is a knock, because it's like sometimes it's hard for both of them to have a great week, especially when Jalen Hurts is their quarterback.
Yeah, you got to have a little bit better or a higher volume passer.
Yeah. And with all those success with those 4 picks that I got, and then my own picks, of course, as well, I ended up being able to rebuild in like a year and drafted Bijan and Gibbs at 1 and 2. And London that first year, and literally within 2 years, I was back in the championship. I mean, like sometimes you got to make those hard decisions of trading those guys that you feel like right now, like, are some of the best players in the league. And even if they went to better situations, but Tyreek did have, one of his best seasons with the Dolphins when he first went there, maybe 2 years even. But like,
I was going to add on top of you trading them, like,
I think the next year, if I kept both of them, I would have won the championship.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the knowledge is always going to have to be there when you're trading a guy like a little too soon rather than too early. Did that get moved?
It definitely followed you.
That's funny. That's hilarious. But yeah, no, there's 100%. like you have to have 100% knowledge that and understanding that there's going to be more good seasons for these guys that you're trading in their mid to late 20s, preferably closer to late 20s. Like when you traded AJ Brown and Tyreek, I'm sure there was knowledge you had in your back of your head to where you knew they were going to probably produce another top 10 season.
Oh yeah,
each.
no, literally, like it was a risk that I took at the time where it was like, quite literally, if I kept both of them the next year, I would have won the championship.
Yeah, they had phenomenal years.
Yeah,
AJ Brown.
But in trading both of them, sure, I sacrificed the championship that year, but now 4 years later, I've been to 3 championships in a row. Granted, I've only won 1 so far, and hopefully I win this one.
Yeah, that'll make it a little more worth it. But still, the idea of the dynasty is to have as good a chance as you can consistently to win championships.
It was funny to me almost that you brought up that the Herbert trade, if you will, or really the Taylor and McCaffrey trade. Because to me, the big trade that you did right now for your rebuild, or like not even rebuild, but your reset in a sense, is that you had Marvin and Jefferson. Mm-hmm. And you felt like with what was going on with the JJ McCarthy situation, granted, Marvin's almost in a better situation if Brissett's the quarterback, but who knows what happens with that situation.
Exactly.
But with that, though, you traded both of them to try and get some shots at some picks within the next 2 years, which props to you because they might turn out to be some great picks as well.
Yeah, I ended up, so I kind of did in terms of main pieces of what I gave up and what I received.
A soft rebuild, but not really.
Correct. Yeah. You take into consideration before this offseason happened and before this year, I had 0-27 picks, 0-26 in terms of first rounders, 0-26 first rounders, 0-27 first rounders. And I did have Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, and Marvin Harrison Jr., but I also have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, George Pickens, a couple other receivers on my bench that I liked, Troy Franklin and Ricky Pearsall, whatnot, Alec Pierce, guys that I still feel comfortable filling in on certain weeks.
Oh, yeah, it's flex players.
Yeah, sure. but the idea was trade away the assets while they still have value before they decrease in value. And maybe I can only, I got multiple, like I lost Taylor. Yes. I lost Jefferson. Yes. I lost Marv. Yes. Would any of them help me this week in the in the playoffs? No, the guys I got in terms of, T. Higgins, because I had done that deal even before during our draft.
Yeah.
McCaffrey, like, those guys were helping me a little bit more. Obviously, T was out this last week, but so was Marvin Harrison, and Justin Jefferson might as well have been out because he got 4 points. So, and he hasn't been good the last few weeks. Like, it's just been I saw the writing on the wall, and that's what I was alluding to earlier, is you have to see the writing on the wall in all aspects in Dynasty. Justin Jefferson, we have no problem with the player. Let's get that clear first.
No, and I don't even necessarily personally have a huge problem with McCarthy. I just don't think he's the long-term solution.
Well, and even if some of you do, or somebody does think he's the long-term solution, it's tough to be I'm in a win now situation with Saquon, with McCaffrey, 100%. With Jamar Chase, with Pickens, with Joe. I have guys that will still be good in the next few years, but also my running backs, like, they only have so many years left. So I'm in a win now position, and Justin Jefferson is now in a situation where his quarterback has to now develop in the next, and that's going to take a couple of years to get to where Justin Jefferson was in the sense. McCarthy's not going to just do it overnight.
No.
Yeah, and plus, there's other targets clearly that he's been targeting in terms of when he's been looking.
Yeah, I feel
better.
Like he likes Addison. Funny enough,
the footballers literally say, "Shout out to the footballers," but by the way, but they literally say all the time, "This man can't target the receivers; he only can target the tight ends." And then you saw this last week. Oh, he started targeting the receivers, but it was Jalen Naylor. So you're sitting there like, okay, this he's getting there, but it's going to take some time. And I don't really my team doesn't have the time to wait for Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, to deal with the inconsistencies of a
correct.
JJ McCarthy
so
right now.
With my starting lineup, I'm still comfortable with Chase, Pickens, and T. Higgins as my wide receivers and flex. And I'd rather try to go get picks that can make impact, like impact plays, impact,
potential
right
top
away.
5 picks if things fall your way, which
I was going to say. So that's going to lead me to what I ended up getting, losing Taylor, Marv, Jefferson, and 2 future picks. That got me 2 top 4 picks this draft in 26, as well as 3 draft picks in 27. And I got back McCaffrey, like I said. So that's, to me, there was not really, and Herbert. So there was not really a losing situation there, unless, and even if Justin Jefferson and Marvin Harrison do become better next year than they were this year, who's to say that I lost the trade if my 26 picks and 27 picks, those are going to be hard to miss
for sure.
Those are going to be hard to miss, at least for me, just because I do so much research.
Well,
there's always the opportunity or the chance.
The top 5 guys are usually pretty
easy to decipher who's going to do, well in fantasy, or who's in a right situation to do well in fantasy.
Unless you're taking RJ Harvey in the top 5. And even then, hey, shout out to you.
I didn't do that.
This was the year. This was the one year he was viable to me, and he's done it for you without Dobbins there the last couple of weeks, sort of.
Yeah.
He needs like multiple touchdowns or like a crap ton of receptions, which he's going to get the receptions almost every week.
His efficiency is not there necessarily in terms of yards per play or his yards per attempt, but the touchdowns have been there because they've needed it in their offense, and
every time I see him score, I'm just like,
like you said, he's been the only guy. He's been the only guy since Dobbins came out, and they have occasional guys here or there that they spell Harvey with, but Harvey's in there most of the time.
Oh yeah, if you're a Harvey drafter or truther or believer or whatever you want to call it,
hopefully you got him in like the late first.
Yeah,
or like the early
second. I definitely hope you did, because his value was just so high during the rookie drafts. But to me, the whole time I was like, he's getting so overdrafted, and then that, like, you see through the first half kind of why. But hey, this is your dream right now. You're living it. Hopefully he got you to the playoffs and it's like in there with you, because this is the one time where, in my opinion, he's going to be extremely viable for you, is right now in the playoffs with no Dobbins. So hopefully you got there.
Yeah, if you have him and you're starting him, you're probably feeling good about it.
Especially, it's like, who knows what happens next year with Dobbins not necessarily being on contract. But I could easily see them drafting another guy. I mean, come on, this is Sean Payton we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, he's always looking to upgrade or improve any type of position. His main guy right now is Bo Nix, and that's who's like a lock.
Harvey even fumbled this past week, I think. So like, it's not like
he did like in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, it's not like he's like secured that one position.
No, his job is not his job. He doesn't have job security like that.
No. And Peyton is also the guy historically. Like, let's think back to his teams. He had Kamara and what's his face?
Mark Ingram.
Yeah, Kamara and Ingram. Like, that was his duo. So like,
great fantasy duo.
Oh yeah, like it's not like Harvey can't still be viable, especially as like a 2 or a flex.
Yep.
But just to me, it was ridiculous that he was getting drafted like top 5, top 6 in the rookie drafts when, guys like Egbuka, Warren, and Loveland were like sitting right there. And I'm like, why?
Yeah, I mean,
why are we taking Harvey so early?
That's exactly why we're making these videos, especially when, we'll come out with more Dynasty content as well, in terms of, deep dive into certain players coming up in this draft, so that you guys aren't sitting there drafting a RJ Harvey or Caleb Johnson over a Emeka Egbuka, who we both had Egbuka rated higher.
I think like top 4 or top 5 picks.
Yeah, we both had him higher than those running backs. Specifically the situation too, like, those are good receivers and it's a crowded room over there, but he's a vet in terms of college play, because he stayed at Ohio State for.
Oh yeah, Baker was talking about how like he's literally just looked so professionally ready when.
Yeah, Mike Evans has talked about it as well. And the other thing too is that Emeka Egbuka is not going to know everything coming into the league right away. So he was always going to have a chance to learn from Baker, learn from Evans.
I know
learn
he
from
has
Godwin.
struggled in the last couple of weeks in a sense, but also some of that is attributed to Baker's injuries and just uncatchable targets.
Yeah, and then the other thing too that was helping him early on is that Mike Evans, while he was still healthy, was the number one guy, and that's where your top corner goes. And Egbuka is good enough at this point, and in the beginning of the season, he was good enough to beat the second and third corner. And now we're looking at him, facing some tough matchups along the way. On top of that, there's Baker's injuries and having the pressure of now being the number one guy and trying to help them win games.
It'll be real interesting to see that play out this week with
pretty sure he also dealt with his own injuries this year too.
Egbuka? Yeah,
he did. Yeah, he's still a lot of people are
Dynasty darling.
A lot of people were down on him in the second half. Much like they're down on Odunze, potentially different reasons.
Very similar seasons with the two of them.
Yeah, explosion early and then kind of fizzled out second half. Odunze's anger was warranted initially, like the fantasy community's anger towards his production. And I was confused by it as well. But at the same time,
both of us, because we're over here like, look, man, Odunze was great in the beginning of the year, and he got the opportunity.
We weren't sure if it was a combination of him and Caleb, or Caleb just being inaccurate. But then the report came out a couple weeks ago that he's been dealing with a stress fracture.
Yeah,
and then he was ruled out 3 minutes before this last game that they just had this last week. So that shows you right there that the production was not a him thing; it was an injury thing.
Yeah,
they were clearly just kind of hiding, which is kind of suspect by the Bears.
Straight up.
Because there was no, no one heard about it until all of a sudden he's out.
Similar thing happened with Hampton, where he was like literally on the IR for weeks. I think he was on the IR. He was out for weeks though, and then you find out as he's coming back, oh yeah, he had like a minor fracture. It's like, what the flip? No one's going to say anything.
Yeah, and sometimes that just, unfortunate situations like that can happen. And
who knows?
But no, we're still high on Egbuka. We're still high on guys like that. And we were high on Travion Henderson to start. I've personally never been high on Ramondre Stevens, Rashawn Moore, as I like to call him.
Yeah.
That's his alter ego I've created for him. When he's good,
Rashawn Moore.
When he's good, he's Ramondre. When he's bad, he's Rashawn Moore. And he's bad most of the time.
It goes back to I don't know if it was his rookie year, maybe it was his second. I think it might have been his rookie. In our redraft league, I picked him up. I'm like, this guy's not bad. He gets a lot of targets because they literally just dumped it off to him every freaking time.
Yeah.
And you're like, who's that? Rashawn Moore?
I truly never thought he was good. So I didn't care to learn his name like that. All I cared to do was just peep at his name on what, Rashawn Moore? No, I'm not doing that. But It's a stupid mistake of a name, but that stuck. So now he's Rashawn Moore to me.
At this point, the only thing that makes sense is that the Patriots were trying to save Travion for the playoffs, and that's why they were using Ramondre so much at the beginning.
And there's the old adage too, is that a lot of times running backs in particular, and sometimes second round wide receivers, they don't get their fantasy opportunity until typically the second half of the season a lot of the time. And then they start blowing. We saw Jalen McMillan last year kind of explode at the last half of the season with multiple touchdowns in the last few weeks.
Yeah, Amon-Ra got that in his rookie year too.
Yeah, things like that happen
he's in
a lot.
Different breed, but
sure. But yeah, no, things like that happen a lot, and that's another thing. We'd like to prepare you guys to try to find those kind of guys, because those can be league winners. Those can be dynasty assets going forward that can either get you something else you've been looking for. Maybe you've been eyeing someone on someone's team. Maybe you've been eyeing picks. Whatever the case might be, you can definitely make something happen by doing any of the such.
Indeed. Do you want to get into some prospects? Because I think the two of us have definitely been doing a lot of research throughout the college season. Myself, even being at some of the Mountain West games this year, it was a fun college season this year, and the playoffs are still going. So some of the names to keep an eye out while they are still going this next couple of weeks with the playoffs and everything. obviously some of them are going to be 27 too. So keep your eyes out in general, especially if you're playing Dynasty and want to keep your eyes out for guys like I think around this time last year. I'm watching a college playoff game with Notre Dame, and all of a sudden I see this dude. They're at like the 8-yard line, maybe it's the 2-yard line. You know what I mean? I think it was the 2-yard line. All of a sudden, this running back on Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love, breaks off a 98-yard touchdown, and I'm like, I gotta keep my eyes out on that guy. That guy is good as hell. And then he was a Heisman finalist this year. Didn't win it, but like that you got to keep your eyes out on guys like this, especially in this time of the year, because this is when they make their breakout kind of big plays. I mean, JSN in the championship game had that insane game too. So
not to cut you off, and unfortunately, remind you, unfortunately, we will not be seeing any Jeremiah Love.
No, I know. I did want to talk about that with you
here. The only thing that we'll be seeing of Love anytime soon is likely the combine. Because Notre Dame will not be in a bowl game, and they will not be in a playoff.
They have forfeited their opportunity to be in bowl games because they were, in my opinion, and I want to know what your take is, wrongfully somewhat taken out, not put in the college playoffs is what I should say.
Some people have been arguing the fact that Miami made it.
Alabama shouldn't have made it.
But
Alabama,
truly, Miami beat Notre Dame. Miami beat Notre Dame.
Yeah, in like the early weeks.
But I agree. Alabama maybe shouldn't have made it, but there's plenty of other teams that could have had chances and whatnot.
Yeah, and I get it. Just join a conference.
If anything, if you're looking to get Jeremiah Love, you're sad that you don't get to see him. But in a way, 100%. You're happy because there's no chance of injury for these last few weeks before the draft.
In a sense, less eyes on him at this point too, in terms of like he's not going to be doing like that 98-yard touchdown again in a playoff game right now or in a bowl game.
But most people I think have his his value.
He was a Heisman finalist. If you haven't heard about him yet, it's time you hear about him.
Sure. I mean, it's they haven't. Some people maybe haven't done research yet. There's focus on the finals because they made it, or they don't have picks, so maybe they're disinterested in potential draft capital at the moment.
Sure.
And who could be in it. But at the same time, there again for the same amount that aren't in those situations of looking into the draft. I'm sure there's even more that are, because 80% of leagues at this point are probably eliminated. The last 20 to 30% or so, we're talking, fighting for semis or championships right now. So there's a lot of prospects right now to that we could dive into, and some situations. The one thing I want to remind people too is, do not go always based on statistics in the year that they're coming out in, because sometimes people can have blow up years, which that's a good thing. You want to see that happen, and you want to see guys mature and explode before they get to the league. And, maybe they figured something out, something clicked for them to where now they're going to be a valuable asset in Dynasty and in the NFL. The other thing I want you guys to think about or keep in mind is look at the tape before you look at the statistics, as well as understanding the opportunity and the situation that they were in. A lot of
100%.
There are plenty of guys in this draft specifically, and of course drafts in the past, that you can sit there and look at and say, I know without a doubt this guy is a good football player, a good running back, a good wide receiver, a good quarterback, whatever the case may be.
Regardless of the fact that they might have been in a situation that maybe didn't benefit them at some point in their collegiate career, or even in their final year.
And that's where certain guys pay attention to certain guys that have transferred. Like maybe they had bad numbers last year or for the last 2 years, or numbers that were promising but never got a full opportunity.
Yeah, that didn't give you that, college star production.
Sure, you might see, and there's a lot of guys out there that maybe have 500-600 yards. Keep an eye on the yards per catch. Keep an eye on the receptions. Keep an eye on touchdowns yearly. Are they, did they have one blow up touchdown year, or are they consistently a red zone threat at their position?
Yeah.
keep an eye.
Even real quick, just in general, to give an example, like to me, it was funny because it felt like the Arch Manning kind of hype this year was so died down after the beginning of the season, and felt like everybody was down on him, or like like the general consensus is, oh, he's not going to make it. When you look at his stats now, it's like, no, this is a good football player. Like, everybody relax. Like, 24 passing touchdowns, only 7 interceptions, which that's not incredibly great, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
And then no fumbles, and then another 8 on the ground and a receiving touchdown. That's 33 touchdowns and only 7 turnovers. That's an incredible
there's always going to be a learning curve for guys like that, and for most guys that are making their first full season season in college.
Exactly. No, most people are not Joe Burrow.
Well, yeah, and then Joe Burrow, even he didn't, he wasn't a starter until his final year.
That's what I mean. It's like most people don't go in their first starting year and do what Joe Burrow did.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of guys of good examples of guys that did, but a lot of people most of the time don't. And you got to learn, especially in that tough conference that Texas is in, and the SEC too, playing those type of teams. Like those are, most of where NFL studs and prospects come from is the SEC, and there's sprinkles everywhere else,
of course.
Pac-12, whatever the case, Big 12, Big 10, all these different conferences are of course going to produce different players.
Conference Notre Dame, please.
No, they never will. They're their own thing. In the reality of the situations, though, again, understand where guys are playing, who their competition is. Somebody may look amazing against, some crap football conference in college, and they play good competition, and then they don't amount to anything in those games. So pay attention to those kind of guys that may be fool's gold. Also pay attention, though, to the guys that are in those conferences that do play well when they do have big games, because those guys are, maybe they feel like there's a guy, Hollywood Smothers, running back for NC State, sure. I believe. He had transferred back, did whatever. Like he did all this stuff to where he kind of took a shot on himself, and it's paid off, and he's done well. And there's a lot of other dudes out there that have similar situations to where maybe they took a tier down because they were not getting playing time where they were at, but they're taking on a bigger workload and bigger responsibility. Even if the conference is a slight tier down. Now, some guys take a big jump down, and
some guys don't even take a jump down necessarily, like Jameson Williams, who literally went from Ohio State to Alabama.
That's also a thing that people do a lot, is go from big conference to big conference.
And he got more work,
opportunity somewhere else.
Precisely. But in general, definitely make sure you're paying attention to those kinds of situations throughout your profile analysis. And we're definitely going to be doing a lot of that here ourselves. And the eye test is definitely a huge part of how the two of us in particular try to kind of go about our process and truly evaluating guys. Stats are a huge part of it, and definitely give you an idea of who to look at in terms of really giving you that eye test, because they might have had 800 yards, but maybe they were playing some crap competition or something on to where that makes it a way easier thing. Granted, that doesn't always mean that they're not good, but at the same time, they might not look as good as what their numbers say, or maybe they look better than what their numbers say. You know what I mean? It all depends. And a lot of the time, the eye test can kind of help you discern from who's actually truly that upper echelon tier and who belongs to be in that conversation that's not in it.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of guys, I'm sure too, that are in certain situations that maybe they're doing well, but they could be in a situation where they could be doing even better. And certain guys have certain skill sets. Other guys are kind of just, their skill sets are through the roof, so it doesn't really matter the offenses they're in. Those are usually the elite, first rounders in Dynasty when you're talking about a rookie class. In the past, the Jamar Chases, the Malik Neighbors, the Justin Jeffersons, things like that, where, maybe not everyone was on JJ right away like that. He was still potentially a first rounder, maybe, he was a good pick, but he blew up, I think, more than a lot of people thought. And,
Sure.
You could find those guys as well. But that's why you do the research, so you can find those guys, so you can see who else is maybe slipping through the cracks on most of your league's board or the general consensus board, and find that guy that really is like, okay.
Yeah, definitely. The two of us always encourage doing your own research, and definitely
correct. Your rankings are going to be different than mine, just like
our rankings are different a lot of the time, even if they're similar at points too. So
yeah, we have different likes and different priorities in what we want in certain positions, and
even what we like in receiver. Like I fell in love with Terry McLaurin years ago and have kept him on my dynasty team for years. I finally traded him this offseason after his big blow up year last year, because it felt like this was the time to capitalize on that opportunity, and it probably was. But that was my type of receiver, is a guy like Terry. And granted, he had his time now, and he's been a great guy, still is. Even now, we're getting questions of him or Tyrone Tracy in the playoffs. So like, it's not like he's fallen off a cliff immensely, but he obviously dealt with injuries, came into the season without being in training camp and everything. So there's a lot of things going against Terry McLaurin this year. But to bring it back full circle, like, that was my type of receiver, and I fully went into that kind of dude for years. And then you fell into a dude like George Pickens, who you believed was the deep ball guy that you needed, and the guy that was a difference maker for you. And now you see this year that's paying off, and it's like very drastically different receivers and how they play in a lot of senses, but both of them got it done in different ways at different points in their careers now.
Yeah. And then, that's the other thing is the one thing you want in fantasy is production, of course. And then especially in a dynasty, you want production for the short and long term. It's tough to play dynasty like in a big window of like 8 to 10 years. You try to.
I'd say the two of us sort of try to play more 8 to 10 year.
I would say we play in a 3 to 5.
I would say it's more like a 5-year window that the two of us try to like play in a sense. Which I feel like 2 to 3 is really the consensus of how you should be approaching it.
Correct. But there's times you're gonna have to sit there and analyze your roster, and depending on your league might be different. Your league might be very active, making trades all the time. You might end up sitting there and going, "Wow, okay, I had a completely different team now than I did a year or two ago because of the fact that your league is active." Your league might be not active at all, and you might have had the same team damn near for the last 3 years, other than maybe rookie picks and a couple of adds and drops here and there.
Yeah. And you can't necessarily be afraid of this. I'm not going to say losing a trade, but you got to think long-term sometimes in terms of the players you're trying to acquire and get. Because I mean, just for perfect example, this offseason, I had Bucky Irving as technically my RB3 or 4 behind Bijan and Gibbs. But I was like, you know what? I love Bucky, and I had him for this rookie year that was incredible. But I feel like I can capitalize on his hype right now, because to me, he's a running back that's going to be used too much and have a shorter shelf life compared to the build that he has and what he's going to be. Like the Bucks literally ran him to the ground this season, and he was already hurt for a good portion of the year. So not to say that I was right, but in a sense, like, that's what I was worried about and why I traded him away. And what I capitalized on was the 10th overall pick, which became Loveland. And then on top of that, I got Chris Olave, who a lot of people were down on at the beginning of the year and probably still are in a sense. But
I mean, he's quietly like the number 10 receiver.
I would say, I think in our dynasty right now, he's wide receiver 8.
To say anything, you know me, I am not a Chris Olave truther. Let's just say that.
No, and I'm not trying to say Olave is the greatest receiver since sliced bread or something.
At minimum, you can say this year he's been consistently.
He's good. He's
giving you some decent points.
Yeah,
and even his floor games, you're sitting there like, all right, like at least he gave me more than whoever else on your team. But
yeah, he had one of his better weeks actually this last week in one of the early rounds of the playoffs.
He's in that low end wide receiver 1 range because of his consistency and his point total. I would consider him like a mid to high end wide receiver 2 with that occasional one upside.
Yeah,
right now, but him and Loveland have literally been more useful to anybody's team this year than Bucky has
For
been,
sure.
because Bucky has missed so much time.
And the funniest part is I'm in the championship now with Olave and Loveland in my starting lineup against Bucky Irving. So
yeah, against the guy you traded. Yeah. So the irony of that, but
it's all funny how it works out. But and it's funny too. The real point of what I was trying to make of Olave is like I wasn't even trading him for this year, but like I have Garrett Wilson and Neighbors who have both gone down, and he's been a necessary part of my team. Where I'm like, thank God I traded for Olave. And the funniest part is like I traded him for next year and really for the future, because I felt like, dude, everybody's so off of Olave right now. Even my brother was like, I'm not feeling him. I'm not. And obviously, neither of us are huge Olave truthers, but even if he is the worst Ohio State receiver guy of the last like 5 years,
not necessarily a bad thing.
No, that's incredible still. Like those are all dudes that are some of the best receivers in the league right now. So it's like, this is a guy that is in a situation where he's going to get a crap ton of targets and he's at an all-time low in terms of value. Capitalize on that, grab him now. And so I got him because I felt like there's no way he's going to not have a better quarterback next year than Shuck. Not that Shuck isn't necessarily proving himself. He's not bad.
He's shown the last few weeks that he can maybe be something. Now, granted, a franchise QB yet to be seen.
No, definitely probably not.
He's shown some promise, like to say the very least, he's shown promise.
Yeah, and to me, it's like in the next 2 years to say that the Saints couldn't get, who knows, maybe an arch type of quarterback. Like
there's plenty of QBs in the next 2 years that have a chance to hit.
Yeah, even if they got Mendoza, I wouldn't, as an Olave owner, I'd be very happy about that. I'm like, all right, like, let's go.
Yeah, Mendoza is right now looking like the most NFL ready QB in this class. And there's not really this QB class is very interesting. I feel like there's a lot of opinions on it, depending on how you feel one way or the other.
There's
some might like Dante Moore because of his physical
people.
traits. Some may like Mendoza because he seems the most NFL ready. Ty Simpson is kind of the one question in the air by a lot of people. The other thing is Lenore Sellers. He's another dynasty prospect that he's got all the tools in the world to be something, but this season was a big disappointment. And there's a lot of these guys that can just go back to school for 27, and they're going to make a lot more money, most likely, doing that
high key
than a lot of guys' rookie deals. So we might see a lot of guys reclassified to 27.
Yeah, I think right now Jeremiah Smith is actually making more money than Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, he's on his rookie. Yeah, exactly, the rookie deal. So and Jeremiah Smith,
that honestly makes it so interesting in the dynasty space too, because it's like that's been my big thing the last 2 years is that NLI money like makes a huge difference on players coming. Yeah, NIL.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah. That money and the fact that the college players are getting profits like that now, like that makes a huge difference on people staying. Travion Henderson stayed an extra year in a sense. Egbuka stayed an extra year. Yeah.
Tons of dudes.
Because they can go try to win another national championship and make more money.
Why not? Yeah, and it also helps them develop a little further for the NFL. And
sometimes they have low key. I think both Travion and Egbuka, if I'm not mistaken, had like not down years, but lesser years than the year before if they would have came out in terms of production, but it didn't necessarily hinder their draft spots. We have been
on Egbuka quite literally since his first like season at Ohio State.
I love that fool.
Yeah, we've loved him for a long time. We were on him we kind of just gave up on what class he was going to be because he just kept staying. And then at one point, it just kind of became like, okay, like, well, he's going to come out when he's going to come out. We're going to rank him high because we've seen the body of work. We didn't care about the injuries because the injuries can be a concern at times if a guy just keeps re-injuring maybe the same thing or whatever. But a lot of times injuries can just be a fluke situation.
Yeah, he's also at a school where there was so much receiver talent that it was
but it was just undeniable though watching tape that Egbuka was going to be good.
So good.
That's why we do these rankings. There's a big misconception too, I think, about a lot of certain players leading up to draft time, and I feel like we can help you guys decipher who's real, who's fake, who is exactly gonna be a diamond in the rough per se.
We have a good gauge on that, and in terms of value.
Yeah, and we could get,
Dynasty as
and
well.
you could come up with your own dispositions about certain players and your own favoritisms and whatnot. And like, there's guys that I've watched enough videos, I've watched enough things. There's plenty of people ranked all over the place. The top four seem to be the same though, with Jeremiah Love, Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, and Mekhi Lemon. 2 through 4 can kind of be up to your discretion. I've seen Carnell Tate ranked as the best receiver. I've seen Jordan Tyson ranked as the best receiver in this class. And I've seen Mekhi Lemon ranked as the best receiver in this class.
Say straight up. And then after that, it's kind of a crapshoot in terms of who people think is the next kind of couple of guys.
Yeah, I've seen
it goes like that for like another round too.
Yeah, the entire, like, you could make a case. Now,
the combine and landing spots will change a lot. That's for sure.
That will change a lot of things. Granted, that'll change mainly opinions, not necessarily
talent, for sure.
Yeah, it never changes. That won't ever change the talent, but changing the opinions, it will. If you want to get into it, I don't know if you have rankings.
I don't necessarily have rankings, but I'd love to hear kind of something I wanted to bring up in general is top 5 of guys you think people should be looking out for in these college playoffs that are still going, even if it is some 27 kind of guys. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith, everybody should be watching because that guy is like the I want to say LeBron of wide receivers, but it's almost more of a Michael Jordan of receivers. And he's getting that LeBron hype in terms of when LeBron was coming out of high school and coming into the league. Like, that's the kind of hype that this guy Jeremiah Smith is getting as a Ohio State receiver that is dominating the college space right now. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I'm still curious as to, like, because I need to see the.
Yeah, and obviously Carnell Tate, a guy that's coming out this year, is playing alongside him, so he should.
The one thing I will say about Carnell Tate, the fact he's being some guys have him ranked first in this wide receiver class, others have him ranked second or third. The one thing to keep in mind is that he is playing with Jeremiah Smith, and he still is putting up these numbers. And yes, you could say Jeremiah Smith's getting good attention, leaving Carnell Tate with whoever else. But
wasn't he doing this with? I mean, not necessarily to the same
Carnell
level.
Tate's been a good receiver.
He was with Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith and doing this.
The one thing about Carnell Tate that I could tell you is, in my opinion, probably the safest floor receiver.
Similar to Egbuka this past year.
He's going to have the highest floor, I think. I think Jordan Tyson probably has the most potential.
Yeah.
He's definitely for me, he's my wide receiver 1 in this class. Carnell Tate being wide receiver 2, and Mekhi Lemon being a very, very close wide receiver 3 in this class.
He was the Biletnikoff winner.
Yes. And you can make the case that he's the number 1 or 2. And sure. I'm not batting an eye.
Yeah, between those 3 receivers, it's kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, again, it's opinionated at that point. You can make your decision for yourself. They all do very different things very, very well.
Yeah.
I do believe Jordan Tyson is probably the most complete in terms of his ability to he's such a great route runner. He's
an elite guy for sure.
They're all great route runners, and they all can high point the ball. They all can be physical. They all have speed. Tyson just has a little bit more physical tools, I think, than the other 2. Carnell Tate is definitely the tallest and longest. Yeah. But Jordan Tyson is probably easily the fastest, along with the height and the length and the athletic ability. Carnell Tate has a smoothness to his game that I love. Mekhi Lemon has a very Puka-like, aggression, in my opinion. He goes up and he attacks the ball just like Puka. I'm not saying he is Puka. Please don't read into what I'm not.
Different build, for
sure.
Yeah,
but at the same time, the physical, like, smaller. But he's like a baby Puka.
If you gave Devonta Smith like a little bit more of that Puka ability in a sense.
Oh, he's way bigger than Devonta Smith.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like, Devonta Smith.
Devonta Smith is like the skinniest receiver you could name.
Oh yeah, skinny definitely.
Mekhi Lemon is
he's got more muscle for sure.
He's only like 5'10" or so, but he's like 190. He's like 190, probably going to get to 195 in the league. And that's a great weight for being only 5'10". That's like
Isn't
a little
that like
mini.
Tyreek kind of build?
Tyreek is not weigh that much.
Yeah, he's lighter, obviously. That's why he's so much fast.
Yeah, he probably weighs a decent amount, but I don't think he's
probably in the 180
195.
range.
Yeah. Mekhi Lemon has more size and strength than you would think based on his size. I love the prospect. The landing spot is going to be very interesting because right now a lot of projections based on the draft in 26 have Tyson and Tate being top 10 or 12 picks. And then they have Lemon being around the 15 to as late as like 22 or 24 range. And that would be very interesting because those are likely teams that have at least decent quarterbacks.
Yeah, you would think that's what I'm saying.
And so if Lemon could end up in the best quarterback situation of the three, because of the fact Tyson and Tate will get picked potentially higher.
Sure.
Tyson will end up most likely with the biggest workload.
Yeah.
Lemon could end up with the lowest workload because there might already be a receiver where he's at. And Tate, similar situation. It depends,
though. Lemon is a guy that's, as a slot, built to get a lot of targets.
Oh, yeah. He could end, like we talked about, he could end up being like a JSN Amon-Ra type.
Yeah.
Where he's dominating targets at the slot position. And, he could kind of move him out all over the place.
Yeah, it depends, though, to 100%.
But he could definitely be a fantasy dominant wide receiver at his position because of the fact that he can get targets. He can run after the catch. And again, his speed isn't necessarily game breaking, but it's good enough to get where he needs to go and make something a little extra happen after the catch. He also has great hands, and the toughness of this kid is just, I love it. And his mentality, that's the other thing. A lot of guys, you got to, they may have every trait that you want physically or whatever the case may be, route running, anything. But what is their mentality? Are they someone that is in it to continue to get better, to like watch them in interviews, pay attention, see who's in it for just money and who's, doesn't, because there's guys out there that don't care and they will fizzle out. That happens all the time. We don't necessarily maybe think about that or maybe look at that as something where we're
at times sometimes that's not necessarily part of our full process, but the NFL makes, and that
they'll show you and why maybe certain guys shoot down the board. Now, granted, some guys they're wrong about with those things.
Yeah, and not to say that they were necessarily wrong about this, but I was actually going through the process this past season in our rookie draft and going through, the prospects. Instantly, I fell in love with Luther Bird, and I'm like, this dude is a baller. And then my brother's like, yeah, the NFL is kind of down on him right now because there's a lot of like sort of drama around him.
Just issues around him that I heard about, and I never didn't like the player.
No, but the NFL put that into their process though. And granted, he fell into a situation similar to like a JSN or Odunze, even who's in the same team,
literally the season before.
Yeah, where it's obviously a very crowded room, and it was tough for him to get spots. But you see him now like producing well. People are injured or limited at times, and doing well, and they're trying to incorporate him into the offense just like they are with Loveland in a lot of ways, and kind of trying to make him part of the future. And so if you do have Burden, you're kind of feeling good about it right now, but definitely like
you're feeling much better than you were probably when he was drafted to the Bears initially. I mean,
yeah,
there's probably mixed emotions. If you like Caleb, you're probably happy in the sense that there's a decent quarterback for the future and for that could develop into something really good
and develop a rapport with him.
Correct. But the negative was, wow, okay, he's sitting behind DJ Moore and Odunze,
and in a sense even Kmet and Loveland.
Because of the draft capital of Loveland.
Even the Swift gets a lot of little dump offs sometimes too. So it's like,
now they have Manungai. There's tons of mouths to feed on that offense, and that would be my only knock on that team for fantasy is that some weeks it's tough to understand who's going to be the guy,
100%.
At times. Now, granted, DJ Moore.
Yeah, they run like the Chiefs in the last couple of years, where it's like anybody could get the ball.
Many mouths that can succeed. Yes. The problem I think being though, for them is going to be not, like I don't think it's going to be lasting too much longer in terms of DJ Moore's situation. Like he's going to be on his way out at some point soon. And so when that happens, that now creates a lane for all these other guys to get a little bit more work because they don't need to keep drafting.
No, they have their guy. Like DJ Moore will probably phase out from their team. Hopefully, he still continues somewhere else because I think he still has talent. I just don't think he's necessarily a great fit for the Bears anymore, or at this point in his career. And even with the amount of talent that they have, like you're better off giving Burden opportunities at this point after spending the draft capital and using them. Like, granted, you kind of need DJ Moore this week because Odunze is probably hurt again, and you're trying to secure that division, but it's like, I could easily see them moving on from DJ Moore, trading him in the offseason type of thing.
Yeah, and again, that opens up the lane for everybody. Odunze is for sure wide receiver 1 there. And then you got Burden wide receiver 2. Well, you have 2 solid tight ends still.
Yeah, and potentially more room for Loveland to grow too.
Yeah, and you have 2. Yeah, and you have a 1-2 punch at running back as well. So
yeah,
the Bears are going to be looking good for the foreseeable future, most likely.
Again, those targets open up to, in a sense, less people.
Yeah, and again, back to what we were talking about too, about pay attention to certain guys that have a certain mentality, like Mekhi Lemon. Again, he seems to be. Most guys, I think that now this day and age, seem to have a decent drive to want to be great, which you can never hate on. Like Jeremiah Love. He clearly is a fantastic talent. He loves the game of football. Jordan Tyson, he came into this year with a chip on his shoulder after Colorado didn't really want to have anything to do with him.
Yeah.
And now look at him. He's the best wide receiver in this class.
Yeah.
Arguably. So, keep going down the list, though, after these top 3 receivers and Jeremiah Love that makes up the top 4. My next couple guys are, it could be controversial. Again, this is my rankings, not necessarily everybody else's. A lot of people will like to have Denzel Boston here. Some people might have Casey Concepcion or Chris Bell or whoever. I have Justice Haynes, the running back from Michigan. I think
like that guy.
Before the injury, it was undeniable what he was doing statistically and just visually on the field. We're talking about less than 150 carries and over 800 yards.
Yeah,
that's absurd. That is and then didn't even play a full season this year, and he's having those kind of numbers. There's guys that have played full season that don't have those numbers. And it's, again, we love the numbers, but we're not just talking about the numbers. What does he show us on tape? He shows us that he could be a 3-down workhorse in the NFL. He's very capable. We know Michigan always has good running games, and they typically have good eyes for running backs. We just saw Blake Corum help them rush to a title with that defense as well. Obviously, McCarthy was the quarterback, but he didn't throw too much because of that fact that they had great running backs and they had great defense. Now, Justice Haynes was a transfer, if I'm not mistaken, from Bama to Michigan.
Interesting.
Which usually but that tells you right away, a Bama running back. Okay, I usually trust those guys.
Straight up.
Then he goes to Michigan, also trustworthy running backs typically. Watching his tape, my goodness, the guy has nice top end speed, great physicality, good size. Quite frankly, he has jumped up my board because initially my top 2 running backs in this class were not. And to start the season, much like most people, they probably had Jeremiah Love and Nick Singleton.
Yeah.
Nick Singleton was arguably you could argue based on 2024.
Yeah, you could even argue now that he's still worth potentially a top 5 pick in your rookie draft.
Depending on landing spot, Nick Singleton has the ability. Now, again, he could go back to 27 or take school and come out in 27.
That'd be crazy.
That would be wild, but because it does feel like he's been there for a long time. But at the same time, we're looking at Nick Singleton still as a good prospect. I don't have him quite as high as Justice Haynes, but because of the fact, again, things change.
I don't blame you on that.
Penn State's team as a whole. Now, granted, is Penn State's fall knocked their whole entire team in terms of draft capital? Yeah, a little bit. But am I knocking Nick Singleton out of my top 10 personally because I've seen what he could do as a player? No. I have him literally at 10. I don't wouldn't some people have him probably in the second round, which that's not I'm not arguing that. If anything, I would agree with anywhere you put Singleton at this point because of the fact that I see both sides. I see the fact that
it's almost a Travion situation to an extreme in a sense where like Travion sure didn't put up necessarily the same numbers when he stayed the extra year, but with Singleton, like there was an actual other running back that was truly like in a sense sharing the workload with him this season. And definitely
Katron Allen being there, that's the other thing that you got to take into consideration when you look at certain teams in backfield specifically. Was there a shared backfield? Was there like Jeremiah Love, obviously the stud of the draft or the stud of the running backs in this class? He still had to split the backfield with Jadarian Price.
Yeah, who's also.
But if we're being 100% real, Jadarian Price could lead his own backfield on 80 to 90% of these college teams.
He might be a top 5 running back for me in this class still,
he's a fantastic running back. Yeah. There's nothing to not like about Jadarian Price.
100%.
He's a really good running back that could definitely be a 3-down horse at the next level, or at least the lead of some sort of backfield at the next level.
Oh yeah, if he was on the Cardinals or something, he would make a huge impact.
Yeah, Price is definitely a guy that I'm looking into in my top 10 of rankings. I have him at 7, but 5 is Justice Haynes. Again, we love the player. We don't like the injury necessarily or the injuries that he's dealt with, but the production is there, the talent is there. The draft capital could be a little lower than maybe some, depending on the combine. Obviously, it could still be a little lower. Like you may see him at day two and round 2 or 3.
Yeah,
and if he's there, my goodness, that's going to be a steal for somebody.
Yeah.
In the draft because of the fact that this kid can really run.
Yeah,
my 6 though is, I think he's going to get a lot more hype as the next.
I wonder if it's the same guy.
He's going to get a lot more hype as the off season goes along and as the combine comes up. I think he has a great chance to be an A-chain type of player. Emmett Johnson from Nebraska, fantastic running back.
Yeah,
absolutely can.
He looks electric.
Break the hole and go for 6 any play. Definitely a good receiving back as well. Not necessarily the biggest guy, but he has good enough size to like he's bigger than A-Chain. We'll say that size-wise. But he has the same type of abilities. And so you're looking at that as, that could be potentially a guy at the next level. I have him this high because of his ability to hit the hole in the middle and on the outside and be a pass catcher.
Yeah.
The landing spot of him could shift his draft stock a little higher or lower depending on where. Like as a full running back, Jadarian Price, in my opinion, could definitely be a better running back than Emmett Johnson. But I could also see vice versa, depending on where they go.
I feel that's like it's almost a tier there. Like it's to
Haynes,
me,
Johnson,
Love is for sure, in
and
our
Singleton.
opinion, the best. And then I'd even say Jonah Coleman could even be in that conversation.
I would agree. He's another guy could be very David Montgomery like, where he could handle a workload of 3 downs potentially. He's a good pass catcher. He's only about 5'8", 5'9", but he's about 228, 230. So
that's crazy.
Huge bowling ball size.
I would say that for reference, there's other 5'8", 5'9" guys in the last couple of years that have come out as running backs that have been electric and great. Gibbs being one of them. I believe A-Chain might be in that size range too, and Bucky Irving is for sure in that size range. But those guys are drastically different than a Jonah Coleman, who's like that guy's got weight and strength to him. It's different,
as they say.
It's different at being that size.
So I agree. Jonah Coleman is probably right around that tier of running backs, and it's an interesting tier too because you can argue that Katron Allen should also belong in that conversation. That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
Katron's in there for me
too. And again, that's I think why this is such a volatile, opinionated class of running backs specifically, because of the fact that a lot of these guys could have different outcomes. I believe in the talent, like everyone we've just named: Justice Haynes, Emmett Johnson, Jadarian Price, Nick Singleton,
Katron
Jonah
Allen.
Coleman, Katron Allen, and then one more, Darius Taylor II from Minnesota. Hasn't had necessarily the greatest season because of a couple injuries here and there, but completely has the body of work and the build to be a 3-down back at the next level.
Yeah, and that's
great receiving back for his size.
That's a crap ton of running backs already in one
class.
Like,
yes, and that's what I'm saying. Like, these
interesting.
guys, in my opinion, are all top 15 in this class, arguably. Now, granted, could that change by the time they have landings? They may land in a spot that lands them behind some good running back that's already solidified their spot.
Yeah,
and that could be very unfortunate because you have
the league has a lot of good running backs still, even if some dudes are slowly phasing out from age. Like, they're not going.
I believe
anywhere
Algier
right
is a free agent, and you may see someone like Katron Allen get picked in like the 3rd round to the Falcons, and then all of a sudden he's in a decent situation as they like to run the ball. Like, Algier can be usable occasionally, but he's not at the potential you would want him to potentially be at. If Katron Allen went to the Bengals, there's more opportunity because they need a big back. They need a guy that can get between the tackles because Chase Brown is quite frankly not going to be doing that his whole career. Like, he can occasionally, but he's a smaller back. They're going to want to have a bigger back to pair with him.
Yeah.
So just situations like that, there's plenty of receivers though. I'll say that in this draft. I have a top 30 right now, and it's It's changing daily depending on what I'm looking at.
Yeah, a lot of things will change, of course.
Yeah, but I have a top 30 in terms of and this is non-QB rankings as well, so I have no QBs.
Yeah, for anybody that's in Superflex, like, a little bit.
Apologies to you guys, but we are in a 1 QB dynasty. We will get to a potential quarterbacks and Superflex rankings for these rookies at some point.
We're both pretty good at picking quarterbacks later in our single quarterback dynasty too. Like the last 2 years,
we've done well. And
I picked May and Dart pretty late in our rookie drafts the last 2 years, even though I didn't keep either one of them, unfortunately. I just don't have the patience sometimes. I already have good quarterbacks, and there's only limited roster spots, and I end up dropping them, and then they go off.
Yeah, and that's understandable. I've done similar things where I've had young quarterbacks that before they even started a game, because I have Joe Burrow, I'm just like, well, I'm not going to I need someone else.
Yeah.
That typically comes when season starts, though, when I start overthinking things. And again, like you said, I'm not patient enough. Learn the patience over time now. 3 quarterbacks that are solid, you'll find some. Never be afraid to also, like, if one is just falling in your draft, if you're a 1 QB league, if there's just quarterbacks that are falling, don't be afraid to, unless you really need and like another guy or need another position, never be afraid to take a stab at one, because you never know the value that they might have in the next year.
Yeah, even Cam Ward, like, I know Titans don't look good this year, and he's straight up said since day one, we're kind of garbage, brother. Like, the whole team top to bottom, and there's nothing that he was going to do coming in this year that was going to make them great. Like, even if he was Mahomes, you know what I mean? Like,
their team needs a rehaul top to bottom. It needs a lot of refreshment.
I'll say straight up right now, if I was in the Superflex, if I could get Ward at a cheap price, I absolutely would, because who knows? Maybe one of these receivers we're talking about, Lemon or Tyson or one of those, maybe Tate, one of them ends up in Tennessee, and all of a sudden Ward has a drastically different outcome next year.
Yeah, as of right now, a lot of them are projected to go. Like, most of them have either Tate or Tyson going to the Titans. And
why wouldn't the Titans take one of them?
Instantly be wide receiver 1. And if you've watched football, Cam Ward is not a bad thrower of the ball. No. He can throw the ball. He can make plays happen.
Yeah, he's got some development to get through for sure.
The other thing though, it is supremely hard when you are on a franchise that quite literally is hampering any, like, the Titans right now don't really have pieces around him that can help him develop even further. So that's why they would draft a Tyson or a Tate. So that's why they need to implement pieces. They need to make good draft picks. They might end up with the 2nd pick in this draft. I would trade back. Yeah. Just like the Giants, trade back, get more. Like, if you trade to like the 8th pick plus more or 10th
could
pick plus
still get
more,
one of those
you can
receivers
still get a
probably.
receiver plus more, like an O-line and maybe some defensive pieces, because
Or some picks for next year type of thing.
Correct.
In a loaded 27 class.
Correct. So you can make moves as a franchise to help
same
out
thing
Cam
for those dynasty owners.
Yes.
You could do the same thing for your team.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone that right now is considered a cheap price or had a down year, or is still a decently young player.
Yeah, and Olave, everybody was worried about his concussion. That was literally the pitch I gave to, because the guy I traded, the Bucky Olave trade that I did, I literally, one of my biggest pitches, dude, like I'm afraid to draft Olave. Like, he's had so much concussion history and issues. Like, and sure, that was like a tiny fear in the back of my mind, but I'm like, come on, brother. Like, this is a talented dude. Like, even if he does get more concussions this year and throughout his career, like, this is a guy worth taking a chance on at a down price, if you will.
Yeah, and it's never a bad idea to check the league, check your league market and see kind of like what kind of gauge what things could potentially be going for, kind of understand, see if you can maybe go get a second rounder.
Yeah, also definitely understand how to gauge your own league's value.
Exactly. Value is going to be a little different.
I would say value is going to be different between people, let alone between leagues. And
yeah, someone may value, David Montgomery differently in your league than someone else's league, or your league mates may value him or someone else at this point in his career differently.
Yeah, don't be afraid to just shop things too. Correct. Sometimes, even like, especially if you're in a lull or one of those middling teams that's trying to get over the hump to try and become, a championship caliber team or get into that championship window. Definitely don't be afraid to make some trades, because the more active you are, especially the two of us, like, our opinion, when you're active and your league is active, usually the most active players, especially in the dynasty league, are the people that have a best gauge on what, like, actual value is worth, but like between players, like the two of us probably have a better gauge than like a lot of the other 8 players in our league, where sure, there's some people that definitely have a great grasp on the value of players, but we've made so many transactions and trades throughout the last couple of years to where I feel like the two of us have a little bit better of a grip on what players are potentially worth or what value is kind of going on throughout the league, because we make as many actions and transactions as we do, or trades even as we do. That gives us a little edge in terms of the value that we can see and kind of give to players, to where, like, for an example, the year that Garrett Wilson got traded or drafted, granted, he fell into the Jets, and that was a terrible situation. So, and like, I know that a lot of times that'll put people off of people in rookie drafts, or like the landing spot and situation, as we've talked about. Even sometimes the combine will get these players knocked down in dynasty drafts in particular. But if you took Garrett Wilson and not, Sky Moore went to the Chiefs in a way better situation that year, drastically different. I ended up making a trade where Sky Moore was part of a package that led me to getting Garrett Wilson before he even played. And I would much rather still have Garrett Wilson over a guy that landed on the Chiefs like Sky Moore, even Rashee Rice. Like, Rashee Rice, I think, is great. But if you're telling me I could have Garrett Wilson, even if he's on the Jets, like, the talent of Garrett Wilson is low-key a little bit more superior to Rashee Rice. It's just Rashee Rice in a better situation. And that's kind of something you got to think about in Dynasty too, is you can't always be based on situation. Yes, if you're trying to win, sometimes good situations are the best thing that you can really ask for, but it's not always best for your team to have a guy that's in a better situation long-term, because who knows, maybe Garrett Wilson's in a better situation than Rashee Rice next year, especially with Mahomes being down now.
Yeah, you never know what could happen year to year specifically.
Yeah, in my opinion, you gotta go off talent and what you think is the most, like, granted, it's tough to do this sometimes when you have positional needs, but like going into this past draft, there were so many teams taking running back early because they needed running backs. And that's how RJ Harvey, in my opinion, got bumped up those boards and taken over guys like Aguka, because he was taken, like, I think top 6 or 7 in our draft. And not that that's necessarily a terrible pick, but when
he was the 108.
Yeah, but if you're telling me right now, if you're a dynasty owner, if you'd rather have Harvey or Aguka or Harvey or Warren or Harvey or Loveland, I think most of us would probably take any one of those three. Loveland is the one where I'm saying maybe that's an argument. But if you'd rather have Warren or I mean, granted, Warren's in a weird quarterback situation now too. But Ibuka and Harvey right now, like, yeah, as a dynasty owner, I don't know how you would rather have Harvey necessarily, personally.
Yeah,
That's
no,
me,
and receivers, young receivers tend to hold a little
Value
more
longer.
value. Yeah, the insulation on their values, or stays.
Yeah, it's something you got to make the best decision based on what you think is talent and who you think the players you truly believe in. Not that Harvey isn't someone worth believing in, but just for the draft price and capital that people were spending on him last season, it was just almost too much to what he's actually going to be able to produce for you through the next 2 to 3 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, that's why we do these things, and you watch the tape, and we can suggest all the guys we want, and it's up to you guys at the end of the day to decide like who's really worth what pick. And you may have a top pick, and you may want a certain guy, and whatever the case may be, but try to understand what's best for your team.
Yeah, and don't just necessarily fall into the situation trap where you're taking somebody because they're in a better situation now. I know you're trying to win now, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be better for you, let alone this, not just in this season even, because sometimes the guy in the worst situation ends up being better. It's just
again, like we always say, you never know what could happen. Somebody could get drafted to a situation where maybe like I'm pretty sure when A-Chain was drafted, Mostert was still there.
Yeah, no, they weren't. It was still an open backfield, and people that weren't really high on him. And he definitely was, even in redrafts. I don't know if people were taking him other than last pick of the draft type of thing.
Yeah, just a little late. Yeah, so things like that, you got to keep an eye out for, and
pay attention to even, of course, next season once the guys get drafted. Obviously, once training camps start, that's when truly you got to have eyes on people, because that's when guys like Puka emerge in his rookie year from the grapevine, and certain people heard about him, certain people didn't, and even the people that heard about him, like me, like I was like, I don't know about this, and then all of a sudden the first week he blows up, and you're like, oh no, I'm too late.
Yeah, exactly. And some things like that can be hard to find or hard to see right away, and other things can be easier. The one thing I will say, again, understand your roster, understand your goal going into the off season. Are you a hard rebuild? Are you a soft rebuild? Are you a quick turnaround? Are you a contender that is you feel like you're still going to be contending next year because of the pieces you have? Understand those things and make the best moves for yourself personally.
Yeah.
See the writing on the wall, like I've talked about the whole episode. And
ultimately your goal should be to find a way to make your team better each year.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And remember,
whatever capacity that is, whatever, obviously injuries and things are going to change. And, that's why personally, I love having a lot of good depth and feeling like, security is safe, because you never know what's going to happen throughout the season, but definitely giving yourself the best chance and feeling like you're not, even if it doesn't necessarily feel like an upgrade. Like I traded, granted, London feels like a mistake, but I traded London, CMC, and Bucky this offseason. And in retrospect, like I probably could have easily swept everybody and won the championship this year if I didn't do that. But also, London's not playing right now in the playoffs, or potentially. Bucky just came back from injury that he was having throughout most of the season. And then you had
a subpar game last week too.
Yeah. And then who's the last player? I said London,
Christian McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey's obviously having an incredible year, and that's the one where I'm like, but I also got a bunch of picks and things. Obviously, the most return I felt like I could have for a guy that probably doesn't have more
heading
than
into his age 30 season next year.
Yeah. So like, to me, like, sure, I definitely made moves of players that could have helped me win the chip this year, but I also all the return I got from it was stuff that's helping
worth it.
Yeah, helping me now, and also giving me stuff in the future that I feel like will last longer than a Bucky or a McCaffrey potentially will. And like I said, London is the one where I'm like, damn, I should have got more value from him. But it is what it is with that one.
So yeah, and sometimes, like we talked about earlier, you got to make some either not necessarily all the time risky trades, but sometimes you got to make a trade that you may not want to.
Yeah. And like I said, in a
initially,
sense, to make your team better. Like after I made those Christian McCaffrey and Bucky trades, that's when I think that's when I traded London, and that's London got me back both a third and 27, which I know that doesn't seem like much for London, but then I also got Likely, who I believed at that point could potentially have a big year this year, and then he hurt his foot. And then I also got back Ken Walker, who definitely hasn't had the type of year I was hoping for, but at the same time, it was something that I did to try and make my team better, even though London definitely could be a crucial part of my team if he was healthy. At that point, I already traded 2 key running backs. I have Jacobs, Bijan, and Gibbs, but it was like I need someone else to give me security at the running back position in case worse comes to worse, and one of my top 3 guys gets hurt. Granted, they didn't this year. Yeah. But even if I felt like I'm losing London, it's still a trade that I felt like was making my team overall better.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'm glad you said that we could lean into real quick here is that the number one thing you want to try to do, I think, if you do have good assets, or if you have assets that are maybe you feel like you could down tier slightly, maybe like, again, Jefferson is a tough one, and right now because of what's going on,
the situation is definitely murky. You never know what could happen next year.
Correct, but what you want to try to do, and that's an extreme situation too. Yeah. But what you want to try to do is down tier occasionally. Maybe you have a super stud players in a couple spots, and some other solid players, weekly starters, maybe, whatever the case may be, but you don't have picks, or you don't have other decent assets that can push you over the top. Yeah. It's never a bad idea to try to down tier to get younger player plus picks, or to try to maybe down tier from I don't know, who's like a middle tier wide receiver, like in the wide receiver 20s.
It's funny because the 2 names off the top of my head are both like top 10 right now. But
well, I mean, if you're looking at
about dynasty rankings,
no, just like this. Okay. This, well, yeah, I mean, you could say dynasty rankings depending on what you're looking at, how you're talking about it. Because
Addison.
Well, yeah, you could down like if you have AJ Brown, for example, he's an older wide receiver. Productive still for a good amount of the season, most years. You could trade AJ Brown potentially, especially now that he's picked up he's the wide receiver 9. After all that complaining, he's wide receiver 9. And I'm telling you, since week 11, he's been fine. Great, he's been a stud. You can play off that and down tier into potentially, a younger wide receiver, like maybe go get BTJ plus a first.
That'd be crazy. I was even going to say Jameson Williams plus, but BTJ would be way
exactly.
greater.
JMO plus a first, or plus a 2-second, whatever the case. Yeah. Try to see whatever you. Now, granted, you may not be able to do that in your league, or your league may have certain guys that they're attached to, just like any league does. But that's another thing we've been trying to slam through is that don't get too attached to where you can't improve your team. Yeah. There's certain hills you may die on, and that's fine. I'm going to die on a Saquon hill, not necessarily because, he's bad. He's not, but he's going to retire essentially on my team because at this point, I'm never going to get the same trade value that I would have if I traded him after last season.
Dancing on top of the Gibbs hill for 3 years now.
Yeah, so I'm gonna die there too. Yeah, and that's fine. Sometimes it's tough to trade those guys. Granted, especially if you're in a win now situation, you usually don't trade those guys.
Yeah,
but at some point, if you are in this loop, a lot of teams sometimes, I would assume, in most leagues, tend to be in a loop of either barely making the playoffs, barely missing, and then having a middle draft pick, which is good, but maybe not a super stud to get them over the hump. So at some points, maybe they trade draft picks, try to get better players. Players go to different situations. Now, all of a sudden, it's all about, planning ahead as best you can and trying to get the guys before their blow up at cheap prices, so that when they do blow up, either you believe in them and they become solidified roster spots, or you trade them on the hype and the blow up and you get even better assets or even better things.
You can't always have like just going off the year prior either, because a lot of situations and things change, and guys end up at different spots, or all of a sudden rookies come in and have a big splash that people might not have anticipated, or whatever the case might be. But definitely things year over year definitely can change. I mean, Olave, not much has really changed for him in the last 2 years, but the fact that he has healthy this year and had a crap ton of targets all season, all of a sudden he's a top 10 receiver this year. Just things can change year over year, and you can't necessarily be on your on the priors of the year before, because certain situations just like that of concussions and things can hinder guys in one season, where the next season all of a sudden they're healthy and they're having a big splash. So.
Yeah, you might see some quarterbacks here and there that are moving to certain spots or new teams, and that may change the difference of an offense, whether to be better or worse. That's for you to decide for your own opinions, but things like that like Sam Darnold going to Seattle. Look at JSN now. There's a big difference when you have a competent thrower of the football, and that doesn't mean he's a top 5 quarterback.
But you see the difference from what the Vikings had with Sam Darnold last year to what they have now without him. So,
correct. Look at Jefferson and Addison were viable pieces last year with Sam Darnold, and now have become question marks weekly because of the fact that JJ McCarthy's there.
Precisely.
Carson Wentz was sustaining the only decent production JJ had left. Had left, but just had.
I get.
And now that JJ McCarthy's there, it's been literal just duds from Jefferson. So the other side of this though too is we want to be able to. When the draft actually happens, we'll be able to know more, of course.
Yeah, we'll be going through a lot more of the process by then too.
Yeah, but we want to also be able to weed out the unnecessary, the do not draft lists, and we may miss on some of those guys, just like we may miss on some of our
sometimes it's not even necessarily a full don't draft. It's just at their price and on consensus, like with RJ Harvey, don't take him where he's going, kind of thing. If he falls to you in the second, hey, by all means, take him. It's a great risk. It's a great reward if he hits, but you never know when guys are that high. That's when you got to flag them, like we're talking about, and that's not necessarily a don't draft. Just don't draft at their price.
Another thing I want to mention too for Dynasty rookie draft and just NFL draft purposes, in terms of who you're looking at scouting wise and what you're kind of looking at to build your team with your picks in this 26 draft. Pay attention like we've been saying, of course, the landing spot, but also pay attention to certain trends. Like certain trends can be positive, and certain trends can really show okay, this guy has a real good essentially, real good chance no matter where he lands.
Yeah.
You want a lot of those guys because
the Garrett Wilsons or the guys that are not necessarily matchup proof. Like you would want your starting lineup, a dude that you can put in and not have to worry about whoever they're playing, but in a sense, team proof, if you will, in a similar sense.
Yeah, system proof.
Yes.
Some guys will match up with systems perfectly, other guys won't, and then you'll see them maybe succeed in other spots.
Yeah.
That happens typically more for skill positions than quarterbacks. We've seen it recently with quarterbacks like Darnold, Daniel Jones, and whatnot. But
I mean, those aren't even proof though, because they had not necessarily, they developed, and that's they went
to that's what I'm saying. They went to different spots and succeeded.
Sure.
That's the whole point of that. But the thing I want to hammer home is find many videos to look at, find many different opinions of other people. Don't necessarily use all of those opinions to form your own. Again, use the eye test that you have. Go
through your own process. Granted, take some of that research and opinions from other people into your process. But
yeah, take it with a grain of salt though, and understand that they have their previous biases. Some people have built models, and they have good models that project.
Yeah, we're trying to build some of our own here as well. So
yeah, and I have rankings of my rough rankings of a top, like I said, of a top 30 in this class, and they've kind of been changing in and out day to day. The one thing that stayed the same is the top 4. That's kind of not moving in this class at this moment.
No,
Justice Haynes can make it. You can make an argument that he could hop into that if he lands on a really solid team.
Yeah, and you have positional need type of thing. I can understand it.
Correct. And again, the production, you're almost getting 1,000 yards with under 150 carries is absurd. That's going to play into the next level for sure.
And positional need, again, just real quick, because this is really how I try to tend to play with fantasy. I try to not do positional need almost at all. Sometimes it's to a detriment because there's a couple dynasties now where I don't really have an RB2 that's solidified at the moment. But at the same time, because of my drafting the best player, in my opinion, that's on the board, I have so many good receivers in both of those leagues that it's it doesn't matter that I don't have an RB2. Quite literally. And granted, they're both leagues that have double flex, and I don't think either of them have kickers or defense. So that kind of plays into some of that as well. But literally in both of those leagues, my team is so dominant because I have 4 great receivers that I can start on a weekly basis, and still one great running back at least, or one guy that I can trust in to give me some points at running back. But because I positionally didn't care about taking the best running back on the board and went with the best receiver, now I have guys like JSN, Puka Nakua, guys like this that literally are focal points on my team because I didn't positionally go for the running back instead. So don't get too caught up a lot of the time in positional need. High key, pick the best guy that you think is going to be the best dude in fantasy that you think is on the board. Because at that point, this is a couple years ago when the Bijan, Gibbs, JSN draft was happening, I quite literally had the number 1 and 2 picks, and my favorite players in that draft were probably JSN and Gibbs. But Bijan was so good and such a layup that it was how do you not take this guy at 1? And I didn't care about positional need. I mean, maybe a little bit because I probably needed more running backs, but it wasn't positional need that it broke down to for me between Gibbs and JSN. The reason I took Gibbs over JSN, sure, you could also say JSN was in a position where 2 receivers were over him, but it was more over the fact I thought Gibbs was high-key a more talented player than JSN, even though I love JSN. And I took him high-key thinking that in a year, if I had Gibbs and he hits, I could trade Gibbs to get JSN plus, and I high-key probably could have in a league where the dude wasn't such a JSN lover that has him now.
Yeah. Yeah, anyone else they would have done that for sure.
Yeah, but that's exactly why you can't necessarily go on positional need, because if you draft the best guy, you might be able to get the running back that you wanted at that spot next year by trading the guy that you took instead and still getting more. You know what I mean? You got to draft value-wise, in my opinion. Get the best value for your team, not just the positional need.
I agree. I think the one thing that would change, that would decipher positional need or not, is if you're sitting there torn between a wide receiver and a running back, let's say, and you're sitting there well, I can't really say one is that much better than the other.
Yeah.
And they're both pretty similar in terms of ability and production. Granted, that's tough to kind of gauge between wide receiver and running back.
Yeah.
But there's rankings, and you can see where guys kind of fall depending, regardless of position. You'll have the top guy sure be loved in running back, but then you have 3 wide receivers, a couple of running backs mixed in, more wide receivers. So you got to at some point decide, yes, is a guy that much better than the other? And if he's not, then go with positional need or potential future what you think potentially could get you, like you said, higher value to where you can then trade your asset for the other asset you maybe wanted plus more.
Yeah, or other assets down the line you might want that you could get with that asset.
Correct. Sense. Right now, there's a couple teams in our leagues that are in just interesting spots. Still, the great assets here and there for specific teams that I'm thinking of. but they can make a few moves here or there to either improve, to finally just say, screw it, I'm going into the rebuild. Whether it be a quick one or a hard rebuild, that would be up to them. But there's moves they can make and probably should make. Much like there's probably plenty of you guys out there that need to make some moves or that are thinking about making some moves. Again, look to monopolize on either guys that had great seasons and maybe you're like, wow, I didn't expect this from this guy.
Yeah.
Try to maybe capitalize on that. Try to go get a first for like, let's say if you have Jameson Williams, I'm not saying get rid of him. I love Jameson Williams.
No, yeah, but
I think he's going to be a fixture.
As a Jameson Williams owner and as someone that has Laporta, it's definitely because partially that Laporta has been out.
And again, this would be the time, if you can trade or can talk about trades or whatever in your dynasty league, this would be the time to maybe sell JMO because of the fact.
Yeah, or maybe you could even do it in the offseason if you can't trade now because he'll probably still have a great finish to the year.
People will have fresh in their memory what he did to finish the season. They won't be thinking, oh, yeah, Laporta was out.
Yeah, or when they go to look next season, they'll still see the previous ranking of him this year, which is probably going to still be top 10 at the end of the season. And they'll be like, damn, Jameson really did great last year. And you'll be like, he did. You should definitely trade for him for a bunch from me and try to get a haul type of thing.
And you could definitely.
It's not even like he's not good. He's very good.
Could play JMO up as sell him like a wide receiver one and go trade JMO for, I don't know, Ted McMillan plus.
Yeah, or if you
can, because some people might be that high, sit there and look at JMO and be like, wow, he finally broke out. Ted is, he's got more long-term value and he's probably the more talented receiver, but there's inconsistencies in a rookie season.
He's playing with
Carolina.
Carolina.
It's just an interesting situation. So if you could go do that, maybe someone that drafted Tet, he's not as high as they were on Tet in the beginning, potentially. Maybe go try to get Devontae Smith plus. It's not that big of a tier down. Devontae Smith is the wide receiver 21. So you're going from back end wide receiver 1 to back end wide receiver 2. But if you're getting a first on top of that, because JMO has, I'm pretty sure JMO's a little younger too. Slightly
like
than
a year
Devontae.
or two. Yeah.
But either way, go make a trade like that. That's because you're not losing that much production. Another guy that maybe you could go grab because he's had a down year compared to his rookie season, Ladd McConkey. Keenan Allen came back, and Quentin Johnston had a blow up start. So that plus now Herbert's hand. These are many obstacles.
Gadsden having a good rookie year.
Correct. They have good running backs now. There's a whole thing of variables that got shoved into the Chargers wide receiver room.
It's similar to Brian Thomas, and Brian Thomas.
I drafted Trey Harris believing that he would be a guy this year for them. I still believe he's going to be a guy in the future, but right now, while having Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnston still being the thing, which I do think that at some point it phased out this year in a sense.
It already has in a lot of ways.
You've seen him have games here and there, but again, he is who I thought he was.
And Trey Harris can definitely take that kind of Troy Franklin type of career arc.
You literally saw Trey Harris this last Sunday make a catch, arguably. But he's a good player that, again, needed the development year, which was completely fine in a Jim Harbaugh-led team. He's a player's guy. He's going to have confidence in his guys. Trey Harris showed flashes at little points, not too many points, but little points
enough to show that he
can be a guy, a wide receiver too for that team, potentially an X receiver for that team, with McConkey being the slot.
Yeah.
And then Johnson being the Y, or the Z, whatever. But again, go look for guys like that in your league, the Ladd McConkeys, the Devontae Smiths, the guys that aren't necessarily the top tier guys, but
yeah,
they're good.
It's similar to Olave for me, going and grabbing him this offseason. Like, not necessarily that he's even maybe he's probably a similar tier in terms of talent as them, but he's a dude that everybody was off of and had a down season because of his concussions, and it was like, brother, this guy's good. he's gonna get a lot of targets.
And keep in mind, like there's plenty of guys that if you have DJ Moore, he's a little older and still potentially a decent asset. But you can look at a guy like DJ Moore and probably ship him off for Shakir plus.
Interesting.
And you could probably ship him off for Shaheed plus.
See, I have a different in my thought process.
The total points, just before you get into that.
Yeah.
Shakir and Shaheed have outscored DJ Moore this season total points wise.
Oh yeah.
DJ, you could say, DJ Moore's been hurt and missed a game or two or whatever. But overall, he hasn't missed.
No, he's had a real down year and not consistent, and you can't rely on him.
And he's only aging, and Rashid Shaheed and Shakir are both younger and just as productive in offenses that, may not need them as the one, but DJ Moore is not needed as the one in Chicago, and that's clear as day right now. So, go do a trade like that. DJ Moore, his name carries more weight than Shakir.
Yeah, real quick, just to give you my perspective on that, because to me, I see that a little bit more as like an Olave situation. Granted, Olave is way younger and has more years behind him than ahead of him than DJ Moore does. But DJ Moore is in a situation right now where he's clearly unhappy and he's getting less work, as you're talking about. And to me, that screams as a situation where he's probably not going to be there very long, if next year at all. Granted, I could be completely wrong and he could just be stuck there.
Or he could go to an even worse situation.
Sure, he definitely could go to a worse situation. But also, like, I'm willing as a fantasy owner as someone that owns DJ Moore, I'm a little intrigued in terms of he could end up in a better situation next year, or potentially not be in the Bears to where if he's not on the Bears. I think in redraft
he could be interesting if he goes somewhere else. As far as dynasty, I think
he doesn't have that much.
His days are numbered in terms of his production level. I think, unfortunately,
but to your point though, like
you were saying trade level fall off.
Who you said Shaheed or you said Shakir?
Both.
Okay, so
Shaheed plus or Shakir plus. See, I would take Shaheed in seconds.
I'm the guy that would love to trade like a third and Shaheed to get DJ Moore and just see what happens.
See, that's unfortunate because of the fact that he's older. Like,
I don't like Shaheed or Shakir though. Neither of those guys are going to help my team. DJ Moore necessarily isn't going to on the Bears.
Oh no,
right
DJ Moore is actually not going. If anything,
no, Shakir, right now he's not going to at all. I agree, but
I'll list Shakir's game log right now. 12.4, 2.2, 14.5, 17.9, 11, 6.3 bye week, 20.8, 11.3, 12.8, 0.7, 18, 1.5, 9.6, 11.5. A lot more good than bad.
Yeah,
the bad is bad.
DJ Moore this year has been bad, but it's exactly that situation I'm talking about with the Bears where they have too many mouths to feed, and he's not a priority to feed anymore, especially now being 28, 29, going on 30. And that's the thing. For sure, DJ Moore doesn't have that much years left, but if you're a contending team, I won't blame you at all if you were trying to squeeze out the last bit of value that he could potentially have, especially if he were to go to a different team.
Sure,
but I agree. If he stays with the Bears, garbage. He's going to be bad next year again.
Yeah, and the main thing for me in this hypothetical is for DJ Moore is you could take that chance on him, but the chance is not going to be worth it enough. As far as you're getting almost this literally better production from the two guys I mentioned.
He's not Olave. You're not trading for Olave. For sure.
And you could be getting a pick just because of his name. So now you're
the best of him is most likely behind for sure.
Oh no, it is behind him. Yeah. His best days are behind him.
He's
not going to get better. There's no getting better. You maybe get a better quarterback, but you're not getting better.
Yeah,
he's going to be 30, brother. There's
no. I'm not saying he gets better. I'm saying fantasy wise, it's possible for him to be in a better situation. Not the best not the best year of his career.
He's like wide receiver, like 33 or something right now, or whatever. I don't see him getting better than wide receiver 27, even next year in a different situation.
I could see him getting top 20 again, but
there's going to be rookies that now push him even further back.
Sure.
And his age of being 30 is going to also, people are going to, again, he's not a bad dynasty player now,
he's
but as an
declining.
asset, depreciating for sure.
For sure. Been.
Yeah. And so that's another one that's just like that. Jacoby Myers, good, maybe still help you for the time being, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But he's not going to, he's not winning you a championship. If anything, he's another guy where you can kind of sit there and be like, okay, well, I'm down to kind of move on from him and see if I could get someone else plus.
Yeah, if I could trade DJ Moore for a second, sure, I'll do that because there's a better chance that second's going to be I could turn that into something that becomes something that helps me for longer than DJ Moore is going to.
And you could say a similar situation with Quentin Johnson potentially, just in the fact that
even though
he's not as old at all. Like he's much younger. But the ability is not even close to what DJ, like DJ's peak is always going to be higher than whatever Quentin Johnson thinks he could reach. My suggestion would have been to trade Quentin Johnson right after he started his hype train.
Yeah. Heck, right now, I mean, granted, again, a lot of trade deadlines are passed, but if you can still entertain trading DJ Moore right now after that 2-touchdown game, it'd be real hard to do probably because most people have seen what he's done this year. But that's kind of why I feel like he's in that place where he's sort of at a low key buy, but also not for anything more than like a year.
If you're a contender and you're in, like if he goes to a decent situation with a decent quarterback and you kind of need deep receiver depth or like a flex or something, not a bad thought, but to me at this point, he's more of a bench guy that can maybe that can pop off occasionally.
For sure. The only way
the other thing too is you literally drafted him, you love him.
Yeah, I'm a DJ Moore lover for sure. I'm talking though, like let's say for whatever reason, this is the type of situation I'm thinking of. Like, let's say Sutton, for whatever reason, is no longer on the Broncos or gets hurt or something isn't there. And obviously Franklin is capable of potentially stepping up. But let's say somehow DJ Moore randomly landed on the Broncos next year as their 1 or 2. That's a way better fucking situation than he's in right now. And that's in a sense
because there's no Odunze. But as far as like, he's going to be a year older.
Super hypothetical,
be a little worse, a little slower.
Yeah.
And he's also, it just like, I'd rather, so if you can trade DJ Moore plus and you're a contender to go try to get Waddle, that's a move I'd be willing to make if like a sacrifice because of the fact that Waddle is a couple years younger. But again, on the flip side, if you have Waddle and you're not a contender, go trade him now. Trade him now while his value is still decently high. And people think, okay, he's the wide receiver 1. He's not a bad player.
No. In fact, he could have a better year next year than he even did this year.
Yeah, most likely. But that's what I'm saying. He's 27. You go trade a guy like Waddle to go get let's see, who's a younger receiver that has had maybe a little bit of a subpar year. If you could trade Waddle for, like, if someone's out there doubting Brian Thomas, go try to get Brian Thomas plus. Go try to maybe get Xavier. Granted, Xavier Worthy's interesting because Mahomes situation next year. But yeah, go try to get someone else, maybe like a Luther Burden plus.
Yeah.
That kind of idea. If you could get first in the next 2 years or next 3 years, whatever the case may be, and make sure you have good picks in terms of a rebuild or whatever, sell these guys that are still good while they are good, because you don't want to just be sitting on all of a sudden 2 years down the road, a 30-year-old Jalen Waddle that now has not even half the value he did
that he does now
compared to the video that we're doing. Yeah, at this time we're doing the video now. Exactly.
Precisely.
Like Jerry Jeudy at the beginning of the season or at the end of last season, fantastic trade opportunity. Still young receiver relatively, but
his value is way different now.
It's way exactly. You could have traded, you could trade these guys off the hype, the guys that are, decent receivers, still good pieces, and you could go get these guys too. I'm not saying don't get these guys or you have to trade these guys away.
No.
But what I'm saying is you can down tier to a similar type of player
and get more value
and get way more value with picks,
still get similar production in your line.
Correct. I mean, I'm looking right now at the wide receiver. The wide receiver 37 is Romeo Dobbs at 136 points per game, or through this season, not per game, 136 points. You could easily, go try to get him. Granted, I'm not a huge Dobbs guy.
No, I wouldn't.
But
try
he's
to
gonna.
trade for him,
He's another guy that's going to be on a different team next year.
I would say, if anything, you would try to trade him off of that and be like, "Look, dude, he had a great season. He might be on a better team." And I think he benefited this year from Reed and Watson being out most of the year.
If you're a contender with Dobbs or something, maybe trade like Dobbs in a third for Diggs or something, and go get a player that's he's older. But he's a better receiver and he's going to help you now.
Yeah.
On the flip side, you have Diggs. Go trade. Try to get Dobbs in a second instead of a third. Maybe try to finesse that deal a little bit.
Especially if you're a rebuilder. Diggs is not going to help you in the future.
Yeah, and there's plenty of trades you could come up with. You could try to do, and again, gauge the lead. You could another guy to try to maybe trade off the hype of this season. Wan'Dale Robinson, great asset right now. Going to go to a different team. We don't know where, and we don't know necessarily who's going to be his quarterback. Great player. And I'm also saying if you want a guy to take a chance on, maybe go get him.
Yeah,
but again, also trade him. If he's never been more valuable than he is right now.
Yeah,
he's wide receiver 11 in the year, so that shows right there in itself. Like you can trade Wan'Dale Robinson for something.
You should be able to.
Yes, very good. Right now, you might be able to get a first for him. Somebody might pay that.
If he lands in the right spot, he might be worth it.
Dude, on the season, he's got 882 yards on 120 targets, 78 receptions, 4 touchdowns.
I've always liked him.
192 fantasy points. Again, that's another guy. Maybe you go down tier to get. Maybe you trade JMO for
Wan'Dale
and a first,
a couple
and a
picks,
second.
even. Yeah.
You can literally, 100%. I would go probably try to do that just to get more capital.
Yeah,
especially this time of year.
Definitely, we're going to be doing some more content as the fantasy playoffs roll on in the next 2 or 3 weeks, depending on if you have week 18. Get it out. Stop doing week 18. It's terrible.
Yeah, definitely don't do week 18. That sucks.
But definitely stay tuned. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We are going to be doing a lot more Dynasty and fantasy related content similar to this. We also like to add a little bit of a betting twist as well sometimes. So if you're interested in that, definitely make sure to subscribe, smash that like button if you did enjoy this live stream, and welcome into more Double Down, because we're going to be doubling down all off season on our dynasty takes and on the guys that we are drafting in our rookie drafts. So stay tuned. I appreciate everybody for sticking in and being in here. If you guys do have any start sit questions or situations you want to throw into the comments or chat after this stream, we'll try to get to them the best we can, or get to them in the next live stream. We'll definitely answer any comments that you guys leave on this live as well. So make sure to subscribe again. Stay tuned. Good luck this weekend and next weekend in your fantasy playoffs. Best of luck to you. I hope you guys win. And get ready for 2026 if you're out of it as well.
Yeah, best of luck. Definitely keep those eyes open for college playoffs coming up. Yeah. You're going to see a lot of different players that will be potentially coming into this draft class, like we spoke about,
or guys that you can high key prep for 2027. If you see somebody you like and you're like, damn,
Jeremiah Smith maybe part of your philosophy and rebuild is selling out 2026 and just giving up whatever you have all for 27, or vice versa. Maybe you like 26 more than most people, and you're down to sell out for this class because of whatever you see. Use your eyes, use your ability to understand what a good fantasy player is, what a good football player is, and understand that, it's always in your hands.
Yeah.
As always, may the odds be with you and forever be in your favor. As far as Double Down, we're out.
We are out. Good luck. And let's win some championships, y'all.
Peace.